group of social media influencers buy a town they've never been to so they can flip it and run it as they please. Little do they know, there's someone there who will make their stay a total nightmare and won't allow them to ever leave. And that's why today in Flick Summary, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film opens with a true crime documentary narrating the events that unfolded back in the summer of 1973, a few miles outside of Austin, Texas. Young Leela walks into what apparently is a TCM-themed gas station/gift shop that just so happens to be playing said documentary. Leela asks the cashier a bit about the tragedy's lore, and he reveals that survivor Sally Hardesty is now a Texas Ranger who spent over 40 years now hunting Leatherface. Soon enough, we're introduced to Leela's sister Melody and the rest of an overly enthusiastic crew whom are headed down to Harlow, a backwood, deep Texas ghost town. The sisters step out of the shop and we're now introduced to the soon-to-be-wed couple Ruth and Dante, the latter who insists they should get back on the road as soon as possible. Before they do so, a man pulls over at the gas station and gets mocked and insulted by Melody for no other reason than simply owning a gun. Now on the road, the group takes time to discuss the plans to flip over Harlow, which they have just purchased to make their dreams come true. All the while, Dante's and Melody's past is blowing up, as if we cared. As the group gets closer to Harlow, they're overtaken by the speeding man that Melody had just scolded, and shortly after they're pulled over by the police. The sheriff is particularly fixated on Dante, mainly because he's been making it well known through social media that he acquired the right to do whatever the F he pleases with the town. Anyway, the police let the young entrepreneurs pass through the freeway with a warm Harlow welcome, and as soon as they arrive, Dante and Ruth start randomly choosing spots for their new hot, trendy town. On another hand, Leela and Melody are quarreling about how idealistic the idea might be to move to the middle of nowhere. As they walk down the main street of this cheap amusement park-looking town, they find out that the man in the pickup truck has been Richter, Dante's contractor, all along. Richter, seeing the fuzz, asks if the group is part of some cult, to what Ruth obnoxiously responds,
"We're idealistic individuals who want to build a better world."
Yeah, that's a cult.
Making for perhaps the only sensical dialogue exchange there is in the entire film. Now, as they look 3 steps deeper into the main street, they spot an antique Confederate flag by the old, and I mean 1925 deep Texas old, orphanage. The group is shocked at the sight of this and proceeds to try and take it down in outrage. But they fail to do so, as the flag is just not within their reach. In the process, Melody finds an old photo hanging on the wall with a mysterious man whose face just doesn't appear in the picture. Wondering who that might be. As they all enter the orphanage, an old sick lady greets them and swears she's still the rightful owner of the place while offering them some tea. Dante is not buying any of this and deviates the argument senselessly as he shuts down the old lady's every word. As Dante storms off the house and Melody tries to reason with the panicking sick old woman, we can see a hulking shadow at the staircase. He reminisces a lot to good old Leatherface as the old lady explains he's the last orphan left in the house. Anyway, the old woman foreshadows that the boy doesn't do well outside and that she might be the only thing keeping him at bay, or, well, rampaging at the world. In a matter of seconds, the sheriff and his deputy simply spawn in the spot, ready to evict the woman from her home as Melody comforts her by telling her that she'll be better over at a nursing home. She then collapses and the sheriff's van immediately turns into an ambulance. The mysterious big boy from the orphanage joins the party and holds his guardian in his arms as they head off to a hospital. Ruth insists she has to join so Dante and Melody can present the town. All of this happens as Richter takes down the flag and tries to hand it to Dante, who won't extend his hand and leaves it on the sidewalk as he's got more pressing matters to attend to. The bus finally arrives full of potential investors ready to purchase the wore-down town and turn it into what we can assume is an influencer's wet dream of a small town. Back to the sheriff's van. The hulky boy holds dear mama while she breathes out her final words, asking him to be the good boy she taught him to be and to, well, stay out of her room. Meanwhile, Ruth is texting Melody letting her know the old lady has died. As the elder Mrs. croaks, the mystery boy spirals out of control. The deputy tries to control him only to get his arm split in 2 and his bone used to shiv his throat while he tries to pull his gun. Unfortunately though, a bullet goes loose and hits the sheriff in the neck, making the van crash against a nearby crop truck, leaving only 2 survivors. Back in Harlow, Melody is conducting the auction, all the while Leela is striking an overall friendly conversation with Richter in his shop. Richter reaffirms he's a native Texan, fitting the gun-loving, truck-driving, and city-loathing trope we all expected from him. All the while, spaced-out Leela spots an assault rifle on his table, which simply picks up in flashbacks to her background story, which turns out to be she survived a school shooting back at home. Back in the investor bus, Melody picks up her phone and learns that the old lady had died. With remorse in her heart, she no longer believes in Dante's vision to flip the town over and argues with him that the distress they enforced upon an elderly sick woman might have been, in fact, the reason she died. She heads over to the shop to pick up Leela, who comes out of the bathroom with a schmuck look on her face and a cigarette. As it is apparent, this is what someone casually looks like after using the toilet. The sisters argue before Melody cuts to the chase and asks Leela to leave Harlow with her. Back to the crash site now. Ruth wakes up to the sight of Mystery Hulk Boy doing something to the old lady's corpse. Oh, he holds her skin. He puts it on his face. It's Leatherface! Who would have thought? Anyway, she uses the police radio to alert anybody who might hear her. But as Leatherface comes near the van, she does the obvious and plays dead while crying. A good old slasher trick she had up her sleeve. Fortunately, the cashier back at the gas station listened to Ruth's message. Not so fortunately, Leatherface guts her and goes on his way. Back in Harlow, Richter learns the old lady had died and decides to snag the bus keys from the bus and says he'll only return them if they can prove that the orphanage was in fact purchased from the bank. Dante says he has the deed and goes back to his binder to get it. But, well, he doesn't. In another scene, we see both Melody and Dante entering the orphanage to look for the deed, but separate when they decide each other should cover a different floor. Melody does find the deed and realizes, oh crap, we killed an old lady who was indeed the rightful owner to this place. Dante hears a noise and goes to investigate, but bumps into Leatherface. He tries to escape, but let's just say that all he gets is a pretty smile, much like the one the Joker has. Why so serious? Melody, who saw part of the bloodbath, does the obvious and hides inside a closet, as one usually does when chased by a homicidal maniac. Now, if you remember, Mama told Leatherface to never go in her room. But since he does, big old bulky boy starts going through her things and is now even more motivated to kill over whatever reason he saw fit. Seizing her first opportunity, Melody runs to the window trying to signal anybody. But oh no, rain is pouring, so the influencer party is moved to the bus. As time runs out, Melody hides under the bed. Dante, however, turns out to be alive and walks down the main street to get help. Richter sees him and tries to find out what happened, but Dante ends up passing away. All the while, a terrified Catherine, head of the investor, sees the whole ordeal. Richter tells her to call the cops and to get on the bus while he goes into the orphanage to deal with Leatherface. Not really what I would call a good idea, but okay. Anyway, Richter goes up to the second floor where Leatherface is prepping his chainsaw. A fight ensues and our man is stabbed in the neck. He falls to the floor and sees Melody hiding under the bed. Before dying, he tries to give her back the keys to the bus, but Leatherface decides to finish his work smashing his brains to a pulp and then leaving the room. Melody once again makes the best out of the situation, but for some mental reason she decides to stealth vault the stairway instead of just walking and use some time as leverage. Sometimes things don't need to make sense in Hollywood. Now, inevitably, Leatherface sees her as she jumps to the stairs and completely Mjolnirs her chest, sending her to the basement. Now the chase turns into chainsaw through the wooden boards to get you type of thing as Melody crawls her way to safety, but not before Leatherboy slashes through the sewer pipeline, covering Melody full of… You know what? Let's just skip to the next scene. Just in time, Leela decides to get off the bus and go check on her sister, who is screaming her guts out through the house's ventilation windows. The sisters reunite and make their way down the street and reach the bus. Melody yells at the driver for him to get them the hell out of there, and as they do, a tire gets slashed. The driver stops and gets off only to get his head sawed off his body. Leatherface steps in and heads to the party over at the back of the bus, but instead of finding a crowd full of fear, he finds a bunch of millennials who put out their phones and start to record, threatening to cancel him if he attempts anything. It's easy to guess what happens next, so just use your imagination. The sisters, however, lock themselves in the bus's toilet and conveniently find a window on the roof that allows one of them to leave, while the other freezes at the sight of Leatherface cutting up the door and delivering his "Here's Johnny" punchline as he sticks his hand to open the door from the inside. Melody uses her corkscrew to stab him in the arm and buy some time to escape, because a wine opener sure is a weapon against an unstoppable force. But okay. Now remember, I told you the cashier at the gas station had listened to Ruth's message? Well, he called Hardesty, the lone survivor of the massacre back in the first movie. She went her way to the town and bumped into the sisters as they were trying to escape. but is way too fixated on her personal vendetta to actually help frightened siblings. I mean, come on, a little empathy here? Now listen, there's something in this scene that bugs me. While the girls are in Hardesty's truck, she says this.
50 years I've been waiting for this night, just to see him again.
So how is it possible that this woman aged, but Leatherface didn't? We are supposedly talking about the same Leatherface from the first movie here, so this simply does not make sense. Anyways, back to the story. Apparently, Hardesty's second nature drives her directly to the orphanage where she has a clear shot at Leatherface who is just sitting, but instead of taking the goddamn shot at his face, she just asks if he remembers her. Leatherface obviously doesn't care, so he calmly walks to the truck and almost gets the best of the sisters, but Hardesty steps in the nick of time and gets a couple of rounds on his back before anything happens. And listen, you can tell this woman was already crazy once. You see her laughing like this. Hardesty comes to her senses and hands the girls the keys to escape town before going her way to face Leatherface. Which, I mean, if you were going to let them go anyway, why didn't you just give them the keys 10 minutes ago when you first bumped into them? Anyways, Leatherface saws Hardesty's stomach and holds her in the air before throwing her off the garbage pile across the street. While this is happening, the sisters try to run Leatherface over, but fail to do so, ultimately crashing into Richter's shop. Now, badly wounded, Melody tells Leela to just run and not look back as Leatherface walks in the garage. Already acceptant of her fate, Melody apologizes for what she did to his mama, but Leela calls him out with Richter's assault rifle, just when he is about to end her sister's life. Unfortunately though, she realizes a bit too late that there's no ammo. So she runs down the main street where a dying Hardesty intersects Leatherface with another couple of shotgun slugs. This is enough to make the villain run away, but before passing on, she encourages Leela to go after him, otherwise he'll never stop haunting her, and that's that. What a way to kill off what was left of an iconic character. Leela picks up the shotgun and pursues Leatherface into an abandoned building where he baits her into a trap where another struggle begins. When all seems lost for Leela and Leatherface is about to deliver the final blow, Melody comes out of nowhere and buys enough time for Leela to have a flashback and eventually pick up the shotgun to save her sister. Leela quickly slugs Leatherface into a small pond in the building but runs out of ammo. He drops his chainsaw, Melody picks it up and slashes his face to leave him sinking in the abandoned building. The day after, the sisters are in Dante's automatic Tesla, ready to leave town and talking about coming back one day to live there despite everything that went down. But just as the car begins to drive itself, Leatherface shows up and snatches Melody from the car only to behead her while Leela watches from afar. What in the actual… Okay. So Leatherface was shot at the very least 5 times throughout the movie, then slashed off with his own chainsaw, and he's still alive? Is he evil Superman or something? How on earth is he still alive? And that's all for today. Now tell me, what would you rate this movie? Did you like it? And what movie should I do next? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. See you next time.